What's up, gang? Welcome back to the channel. As y'all know, I'm Joe with maxpacks.com. So today we're going to talk about the one Pokemon investment that no one is talking about. And I know like Rudy has said he refuses to touch it, and Nostalgianomics says he refuses to touch it. But I mean, I kind of refused to touch it at first too, but there came a point where it was just like, all right, this is too cheap to pass up on, and it's done numbers. Or, I got stuck with it because the market fell. And I was like, well, I'll just put it in my closet. I saw bigger YouTubers or bigger stores than me do this, and it's worked out well for them as well. So, what am I talking about? Well, that's Japanese Pokemon. Yep, you heard it. Japanese Pokemon. No, it's not because I sell it. I actually started doing inventory and I found a bunch of stuff that I had stashed away. I have made videos probably 6 to 9 months ago, giggity, about Terrastal Festival. So I found all of that. I found a bunch of 151 that I had bought, including a sealed case and a bunch of, just normal booster boxes that I had bought before I became a store, and I had put them in the closet just because I had an understanding. I was still a young investor at the time in Pokemon. I mean, I'm still a young investor, but I was like, hey, this sounds like a good idea. I mean, that's really all there is to it, right? You got to take a little bit of risk. You got to take a little bit of shot, chance. And so, yeah, I'm talking about sealed Japanese Pokemon. And we're going to talk about some of these sets. So get ready for it. I know Brian from Pokemon, he talked about this as well. I believe he said like Ruler of the Black Flame he has cases of because it was $27 a box. And so he's just like, I'll buy a case. And it didn't sell, so he threw it in his closet. I had something similar happen earlier last year with Glory of Team Rocket. I had bought like 12 or 15 boxes or something like that, and then the market dropped. I don't know if I just bought before a reprint or, we just started going through some turbulent times, but I was like, hey, Team Rocket was a fantastic seller for me. Like, I'll just keep buying it and buying it and buying it. And then at some point it was just, well, I bought too much. And then the market fell. And I was, well, I'm not going to take, a $20, $30 loss on this. So I'm just going to throw it in my closet. And now I'm up big on it again. So now that I'm up big on it again, I don't want to hold on to something like that very long term. I'd rather have, my churn and burn that we talked about in our last video. I'd rather, move that money into something else. So I am selling them again now for a nice profit. But, at the time I had bought those, put them away, and then the price dropped, so I bought some more, so I still had inventory for my store, so I could still sell those, and as the price moved up, it was a win-win for me. There's like two different sides of it. I went into the mindset with Team Rocket as I was going to churn and burn it. With a lot of these other sets, I bought before I was a store, and so I went into the mindset of, hey, this seems like a pretty good deal. This will probably go up. So with Japanese, you usually want to focus on the high class sets, which are our specialty sets essentially. Mega Dream, which is Ascended Heroes, Terrastal Festival, which is Prismatic, Shiny Treasure EX, which I like to refer to as Stex. That is Paldean Fates, 151s are 151 obviously. V-Star Universe is Crown Zenith, and we're going to talk about a lot of those sets anyway. We're also going to talk about some of the bigger, better sets. So here we go. Let's get into it. High class set, V-Star Universe. This is $160 right now. The high class sets have 10 packs in them. This is $160. A year ago it was $115. I believe when I bought this 2 years ago, it was like 60 bucks. Terrastal Festival. This is 1-for-1 of Prismatic minus the Battle 100 deck or whatever it is. This is currently at $125. A year ago it was about the same price. However, about 6 to 9 months ago, giggity, I had preached all over my YouTube channel. You can go back and look all over the YouTube channel. Hey, this is an obvious buy because a set like this probably isn't going to go under, that $60, $65, $70 price point. They had just announced the reprint, I don't know, probably 4 months after release or something like that. And I was like, this is a no-brainer. Like, buy this, buy this, buy this. And sure, it wasn't, I couldn't immediately churn it for any profit. I would have probably lost money had I tried to immediately churn it. But I said, you know what, I'll buy some boxes. I went to the mindset of, hey, we're gonna, stash this away because I know this is gonna go back to 100 plus. And that's exactly what I did. And now I have a bunch of boxes stashed away and it's 120 plus. However, if you go back to my channel and you can physically look. That's part of why I do a YouTube channel, is there's a video log of what I'm talking about, my right predictions, my wrong predictions, my call outs, etc. And we can go back and look at them and see, hey, was I right? Was I wrong? And on that one, that was a pretty good idea. Sure, there might have been places that outperformed that, but at the time, just as a new business and everything, I wasn't very knowledgeable on the, hey, you need to be churning and burning, not investing. But hey, it worked out anyway. And I'll gladly take a 2x profit margin. To me, it just made sense to hold on to it at the time because I knew it was going to be a $100 plus box. And now that it is, maybe I'm going to start looking to sell those again. We'll kind of see what happens, and if I see there's a lot of demand. The issue I see with Japanese is once the boxes get too expensive, there starts to not be a whole lot of demand, and then you're kind of forced to sell onto like TCG Player and eBay and stuff like that, and I really don't want to lose 15% just to sell on those. So that's kind of the issue with having your own website. I've sold a couple more expensive boxes locally to a couple people who are like, hey, these are sick boxes, which they are. Like, if you genuinely look at some of the artwork on a lot of these, like, that's freaking sick. That's a lot cooler than most of our Japanese or our booster boxes stuff. Like, some of these are freaking sick. Anyway, with that being said, obviously we're gonna talk about these sets now too. So Shiny Treasure EX, this is like $105 now. This Stex, this is Paldean Fates, Bubble Mew, Charizard, Gardevoir. Again, high class set. So when you see the small boxes like this, these are high class sets. This was $65 a year ago. However, you could have gotten these for like $15 a box because the deals and stuff that were going on TikTok and whatnot, not the app Whatnot, I just, TikTok and people's stores and all sorts of stuff, like they were so dirt cheap. There was people that were getting them for like $2 a box. I think the cheapest I got was like 17 or 25 or something around that range. I sold the vast majority of them when they were like $60, $70 a box just because it made sense. Again, this wasn't as a store. This was me as an investor going, hey, this is like too cheap to pass up on. And I'm thankful for a couple people in some of my Discords who kind of started teaching me like, hey, high class sets for Japanese are usually pretty solid sets. Obviously, we know that. Obviously, now I know that. Like, hey, that makes sense. So shout out to you, So, if you watch any of this. I vividly remember you telling me like high class sets are no-brainer buys, and at like $17 to $20, you'd be an idiot not to buy these. So I knew people that had cases of this shit everywhere, and they were just like, hey, it's like $15 a box. I can't beat that, So kudos to all those guys. Like, I'm sure they're up big, but I sold them at like $60, $70 a box before I had made a store and everything, and now they're sitting at $105. That's kind of crazy. As y'all know, we already brought this out. This is Lost Abyss. This is basically Lost Origin. I'm not 100% sure how the Sword and Shield sets line up with our English Sword and Shield sets. Usually they do a 2-for-1. So Lost Abyss was reprinted really late in the life cycle. Well, maybe it wasn't reprinted. I'm not 100% sure if it was reprinted or if they had leftover stock that came out or what. You could have got those literally at MSRP. Back then you could order straight off of Pokemon Japan. So that's my last one. I sold a bunch already. But I had a bunch of them at MSRP, and I was like, I'm just going to throw them in my closet and hold on to them for a while. I got a bunch at like $60, $70, $80 even. I even got some at like $100 at some point, and now Lost Abyss is a $240 box. A year ago, it was a $140 box. I accidentally sold my last Fusion Arts, so I don't have one to show, but Fusion Arts is Fusion Strike. So Fusion Arts is pretty similar boat, although it didn't get a restock and I wasn't able to get any at MSRP. I was able to get some relatively cheap, in that $100, $120 range, and now Fusion Arts is about a $220 box. So as you can see, in a year, these bigger sets are up $100. So you doubled your money. And yeah, you can say, hey, if I did the same thing with the English one, I'd be like 8x. Well, Sometimes you have a hard time finding English stuff, or English stuff is so much more expensive that, hey, I can't really afford that at the moment. Or, space is an issue. Like this booster box is freaking tiny, It's like 4x4, 4x6x2. Like it's pretty small. There's reasons to go to Japanese over English, although 90% of the time I would say English is probably a better route. It really just depends what you're looking for. So finally, we're going to talk about 151. 151 is one of the holiday sets that aren't this way. For some reason, they made it like more like a normal booster box. So these booster boxes are normally your mainline series sets. At 151, this was a screaming buy. Everybody was like, hey, the Japanese is better than the English, which at the time, Master Ball Hollow, Master Ball Reverse Hollows, and Pokeball, I don't think there's Pokeballs. I think there's just Master Ball Hollows in these. But that seemed like a huge thing, and as we found out, like, a lot of people don't really care about those. So we kind of found out that a lot of people don't really care about those. Sure, the more popular Pokemon have a lot of value, meaning Pikachu, Gengar, stuff like that. But outside of that, the other Pokeballs are like $20, $30, $50. I don't really think there's any others that are super expensive outside of, the Pikachu and Gengar. However, 151 is now $235 a box. A year ago, they were $140, and if you bought them when I bought them 2.5 years ago, roughly, you could have got those for like $50. Like, they were everywhere. In Japan, even, there's just people that have rooms just filled to the ceiling full of them. I mean, those people are rich now. That's just insane. But these were literally everywhere. $50 a box. People were just... I can't even imagine what big shops were making off of that, Brian from Pokemoncards, he probably made $1 million off of 151 alone, just from being able to churn all of that Pokemon product. And, I stashed like a case, which the cases are like $3K now. I got that case a lot cheaper than that. I'm up more than 3x on that, let's just say that. We could also look at sets such as EV Heroes. EV Heroes is now $650 a box. A year ago it was $450, and I'm sure 2 years ago before that it was probably like $200. EV Heroes has gone up a ton in the last couple of years, just like Evolving Skies. Team Rocket right now $135. I believe it was like $75 to $80 not too long ago, but like a year-ish ago. Black Bolt is up to $130, and Black Bolt was like $75 not too long ago. So you can just kind of see Japanese market does boom, and it does go up long term, just not like English. So 99.9% of the time, I will say I would prefer to stick to English stuff when it comes to investing. Japanese is definitely a way more fun rip if you want to crack packs, if you like the artwork, if you like good centered and quality cards, cards that actually have quality control. Japanese is 100% your go-to. Investments, I would normally say stick with English stuff. That's not saying Japanese doesn't appreciate over time. It just doesn't appreciate as quickly. So why would you want to, put your money somewhere that doesn't appreciate as quickly? Also, Japanese is a lot more volatile. They don't really announce restocks or reprints, and because it's in Japan, a lot of people don't really report on that stuff, so we don't really have an idea. We just kind of see the price drop or the price boom. So a lot of these sets that are booming, Black Bolt, Team Rocket, Terrastal Festival, they're booming because they haven't had a reprint in a while. And I don't want to say stock is dwindling, because Japanese supply is like an endless supply almost. But maybe stock is dwindling. I don't know. But it's seen as more of a rarer set now. Where I will say JapaneseIsTheBomb.com, things like this. Some of you have no idea what this is. Some of you, because you bought them from my website, you're like, I got a pretty damn good deal on that. Yeah. These are exclusive Pokemon Center promo boxes. Essentially, this is Fukuoka. They had a Hiroshima and a Tohoku or something like that. They're basically the Japanese exclusive promos are absolutely insane. Let me see, there is a promo card on here. You can see it. Here's the promo card in this box. It's a little rough to see. Those promos do wonders long term. That actually really reminds me of like the Ponchos, the Mario, the Luigi cards. Obviously, I'm not saying that's going to become, the Mario Pikachu that's a $10,000 card. By no means do I think that's going to be a $10,000 card? Even in 10 years, I don't think it's going to be a $10,000 card. But those exclusive promos do wonders, and they far, far, far are better than a vast majority of the English promos, outside of maybe like the Van Gogh. And if we want to talk about, older promos, like I already said, the Ponchos, the Luigi, the Mario, you have the Scream promos. So those promos are one area where I'll say like Japanese goes crazy. Also, this is like a $240 box now. At some point, they were over $300 or $400, and my website people got these for $155. I believe $165 shipped. I lost money on these to make sure that everybody that bought them got them. So I hope you guys enjoy them. I hope, if you opened it, you got a good non-damaged card. I know there's a lot of issues with those ones. Just because there's no protection, it's just in the box and it, shakes all around. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you think it's worth investing in Japanese booster boxes, high-class sets, or just the promos? Let me know in the comments below. And remember, this is Joe from MaxPacks.com. Dipping out.